Hey there everyone and welcome to another Neo Monsters video. In this video we're going to be looking through all the Shadow monsters that came out in 2019. Like with my other videos, this is going from anniversary to anniversary, so I'm not covering any monsters past Halloween of 2019. I'm also in this video including, I believe it's 3 monsters from 2018, the Halloween and anniversary. Those technically don't fit into this, but because this is the first video and I find those monsters particularly interesting to talk about, I'm including them in here. So let's get started. This video is going to be broken down into 3 sections. The first one going through the themes and sub-themes in Shadow. That's talking about the various archetypes that it's built around and that kind of stuff, stats of the monsters. Then we're going to be going through all the new monsters, going through them in the order shown. 2019, we had a lot of piercing come to the game. It's been introduced and it's just getting thrown around everywhere to counter the shields and hold ground, that kind of stuff. The last section of this video is going to be talking about what these new monsters have added to the element and what it will need in the future, that kind of stuff. There are links in the description to go to any point in this video to help you navigate if you're coming back to it at a later time too. So this first slide that we're looking at, this has all the Shadow monsters that are out, all the Legendaries and Mythics. This includes the ones from 2019. They're not going to be talked about in the themes in a second. What I'm mostly going to go through is just talking about what the stats are. So we've got 5 new Mythics, 1 new Legendary, and 5 Super Epics. That one Legendary is actually the Moth. Every element got its own Moth. So Shadow didn't actually get any Legendaries this year other than the one which everyone got. Which is kind of a reason why I'm talking about the 3 Legendaries it got just before it would be fitting into this 2019 review. So I wanted to include those. Anyway, not many monsters, but we did get quite a few Mythics. In terms of where the stats stand for Shadow, Shadow's an incredibly interesting one in that it has more top-end full attack and standard attack monsters than any other element comparatively. However, it also has a lot of the bottom end, so it has a lot of full defense monsters. So Shadow monsters tend to be on the very extreme end, and they don't really go with the just middle ground of quite tanky. They have the full-on protectors, and then they have the massive damage dealers that don't have any defense. It kind of mirrors, which we'll go into in a second, it kind of mirrors Holy in a lot of ways in terms of having what Holy has, but flipped over, or in some cases the same thing, but because the stats are flipped over and the speed's kind of flipped over a little bit, it kind of comes out different, the output is different. So anyway, talking about the speed, Shadow has a lot of mid-range speed monsters. It has a few slow monsters, it has very few fast monsters. It tends to just be in the middle range, and what you see a lot of is a lot of really high damage monsters which have around 60% speed, or in the 60s. So that's what it sort of focuses around, and a couple of things to note with it. I say very little stun protection. There is, ironically, Bitter Beast, which we all get at the beginning of the game, that has a stun absorber, and it's an incredibly good stun absorber. So ironically, everyone has a really good Shadow stun protection. But in terms of what it actually has overall, it doesn't actually have much stun protection. It's definitely something you notice if you try to build a Link Shadow team. You can't fit in much viable stun protection. The stun immunes aren't necessarily the best sweepers and that kind of stuff. There are also tons of blood moves fitting with the massive attack sort of stats on the enemies. The monsters. They have lots of blood moves. A lot of them are about killing. So moving into the themes now, the first thing to talk about that we talked about just a second ago is how it mirrors Holy. So what I've got listed on the right here are the Holy themes, just picking out some of them which then Shadow mirrors. So while Holy has a survivor theme, i.e. you have to wait time before then you get the payoff of the survivor moves to kill monsters, Shadow has the death sentence theme, where again you've got to wait time. It's a very similar time to survivor, and then the enemies will die. So their payoff is sort of, enemies die as opposed to having a sweeping move. Then we got the Mist theme to the Stealth theme, again very similar, except the Mist including Purify, which is a little more Holy theme as opposed to the Shadow theme, which has Stealth for the move Sneak Attack. So actually, damaging with the stealth stuff. Then we've got Poison, And in Shadow, we've got a poison theme. Shadow's pretty heavy on poison theme as well. And Holy has absolutely no poison, so it's the opposite there. And then Necromancy and Revival, very similar themes there. But you'll see when we get to talk about Necromancy, it's slightly different spin on it. And then Healing Cannibalize compared to Healing. So in Shadow here we've got the Cannibalizing for Healing, which we don't really have much in Holy, which makes sense theme-wise. And then Holy's also got the sort of Confidence Strike, so it's got a benefit of being on max health. Shadow is more about just killing things to heal up your monsters to kind of keep them healthy, because they don't tank that well, or for the tanky ones, healing up the tanky ones. And then I've got a little space here before going to a couple more. These were not included in my Holy video, but there were other themes which I kind of noticed that I didn't really put in there. So the first one's more of a general one. We're talking about how in Holy there's lots of control. There's loads of stun, sleep, and give turn. That's Holy's really about controlling the game and winning that way with tanky monsters. Whereas Shadow, on the flip side, is there's an AoE spam, the sub-theme. So that is just assisted hit all, no control there, just literally smashing our way through. And then we've got the anti-stun sub-theme in Holy. As a bit minor, it's not really such a standout theme in that element compared to other elements. Every element kind of needs some stun protection stuff. But anyway, in Shadow, we've got stun and time strike. There's a lot of that. There's actually, there's a lot of Shadow monsters with blood moves, there are a lot of Shadow monsters with time strike too. There's not tons of stun compared to some of the other elements. It's not really so much like a sub-theme to really note, but there's a lot of time strike in the element, so it definitely benefits from stun, and it does have stun built into the element. So let's move on to the first theme, which is Death Sentence. Now this is something that's very noticeable when you start looking at the monsters compared to the ones in other elements. Death Sentence is not really around in any other element other than Shadow. There's a few, niche cases, some small monsters which will do it, but Shadow has a lot of monsters which do Death Sentence. Now when I say Death Sentence, it's not just that move. I'm talking about anything which has a guaranteed kill on an enemy. And in fact, this is one of the reasons why Shadow is one of the best PvE elements. I would say is the best. And one of the main reasons why is these kind of moves, Death Sentence moves, they don't care about the stats of the enemy monsters. So if the enemy monsters are buffed, as they often are in PvE, these Death Sentence doesn't matter. So these monsters work just as well. So on the right here, we've got monsters with actual Death Sentence type moves. And on the left, we've got monsters which just have guaranteed kill moves. So we've got the Mark Super Epic that can mark things, and then it's got the Mark Trigger as an entrance, which will kill any marked enemy. Anku Dragon has the Eternal Revenge, which will just instantly kill anything. It's random target, but it does that. And then Tortogeist will instantly kill whatever kills it. So a lot of cool stuff here that will just work very nicely in PvE especially. The next theme is Stealth theme. So Shadow is very well known for stealth. There's not actually a lot of monsters here, but stealth in general, there's not a whole lot of it around. They've been slowly kind of building it in a bit more over the years. And Shadow's the element which is meant to have the most stealth, I believe. Maybe water too, but we'll see it with time. So on the right, we've got the Super Epic, which is definitely a stealth monster. It's all about getting that stealth and the sneak attack. On the left, we've got two Protectors, which can stealth teammates. So Voodoo actually has currently the fastest Purify Mist in the game. It's 100 seconds, when all the other monsters have 130. And then on Super Epics, it's like 200. So 100 seconds Purify Mist, definitely solid support there for stealth in Shadow. And the Protector there, that is a unique Protector that was added basically to fit the role of all the Super Epic Protectors which have Stun Absorb. So it's a Protector, it's got Stun Absorb, it's got Shield Entrance rather than Hold Ground. Meh, doesn't really matter. But the main thing about it compared to the other ones is it's got Purifying Stealth Teammate, as opposed to the other ones which just have Stealth Teammate. So that's very definitely showing that Shadow has this better support for stealth, because you can't stealth something that's poisoned. It just loses that. So Purifying Stealth really helps that work nicely. Then of course in the middle we've got two legendaries that are exceptional stealth legendaries. Zulong being the Link Sneak Attack All, and otherwise Link Stealth All. It's poison immunity as well. so it can't be shut down like other stealth monsters by poisoning them. And it's got hold ground, which poison immunity and hold ground makes it survive very nicely. So definitely strong support for stealth. If there's any other shadow stealth monsters that come to the game, Zulong is going to be right there helping them out and making it very strong. Tenebrae in PvE, probably right now one of the, if not the best monster for PvE, it is among the best monsters for PvE. Its cloning and shadow entrance, I can't remember if it's called shadow entrance or short foggy entrance maybe. Anyway, stealths your whole team when it enters. Incredibly good stealth monster. Definitely Shadow has it all for stealth, and any new stealth monsters that come out are going to work very nicely. The next theme is Poison. Now, I've always said over the years that Shadow and Poison, they don't really have that much, but if you watch my Fire video, you'll know that actually Fire doesn't have that many Poison monsters, and Fire and Shadow are definitely the two Poison elements. Water has some stuff for that now, but we'll get to that in the Water video. But anyway, so Shadow does surprisingly have quite a lot of Poison, and with more Poison stuff coming, they'll definitely really get there. So the reason why I never really said Shadow had much Poison is, if you look on the left, there are 3 monsters with Poison Revenge. I mean, the Rattleworm does have Venom Sneak Attack now, but it's not really a Poison monster. Basically, those 3 monsters just have Poison Revenge. And then in the middle, we've got the, I can't remember what it's called, the Vulture monster. Poison's a monster when it enters, and it can do the Poison Eater into Blood Crave. Fine, it's kind of poison, but like at the end of the day, it uses poison to get 1 kill to then do Blood Crave, and it's more about the pullback stuff, so it's not really making poison strong at all. Then at the bottom we've got Voodoo, which the way that poisons is it adds tokens to the enemy team, which then have to sacrifice themselves to poison the enemies, and then it has Poison Massacre itself. It's got such low attack, it's not really a poison sweeper itself, and it definitely supports poison, but it's not some big flashy poison monster in the element. Voodoo, actually, good thing to note is it fits into this poison theme and also the stealth theme. So Voodoo, and also we saw it in the Death Sentence theme, it's very much a shadow monster, and because it can support both stealth and poison, it fits very nicely into Link Shadow teams with, you know, whatever you're trying to do. Maybe it can be in between some poison and some stealth stuff. Pretty cool monster. Anyway, the other 3 are basically the poison monsters. So, while Deathgazer is mainly about the entrance, and it can do the retreat to have another entrance, it does have the poison moves powered up, so they are powerful now. In the past they weren't so much, but between Deathgazer, Bane Dragon and Terror Dragon, there's definitely poison sweeping going on in Shadow, and you know, with a little bit more, it definitely is a big theme in the element. Moving on to the next sub-theme. So the sub-theme here is Necromancy. This mirrors the revival sub-theme in Holy. There are only a few monsters for each. I mean, I think there were 3 monsters in the Holy sub-theme for revival, and here we have 4. It's not a massive feature in the game because it could be, you know, pretty overpowered, but definitely is something that Shadow has. On the right, we've got 2 effectively mirror revenge monsters, so they revive the thing that that killed it, and yeah, in Tortugai's case, it kills it as well. But you know, basically, it revives something, it brings something out, and it was something off the enemy team. Atrahasis can get stuff off your team or the enemy team. Clearly, that's the monster with the Necromancy move, and yeah, it's all about reviving stuff. And then Revenarchian, it revives itself when it dies from the egg, but really where that fits into Necromancy as a theme is that it's a very good target for reviving. Not only for the fact that having multiple Revenarchians, they each charge each other because one dying will then charge the Revenant moves of another, but also because that egg sacrifices itself, it makes it very easy to revive that egg, because normally, you know, if you want a monster to die to then Necromancy it, it's quite hard to actually make the enemy team kill it. But with Revenarchian, if it dies, then you can revive it, but also you get the egg, which you can time when it's going to die, and then time a revive for reviving that particular egg. So it fits in very nicely, and overall, there's a pretty cool sub-theme here going on that I look forward to seeing what they do with in the future. Next we have the Healing and Cannibalize sub-theme. So there's mirrors, the Holy's just healing theme. You can see there's a lot less here, and this is probably the one which you wouldn't have thought about in Shadow. A lot of people, they look at this monster in the middle, I can't quite remember its name, but it's the one with the kind of weird claws coming out of it, and Devilborg, that's it. And it has Link Summon Minions, which is, okay, bit of a weird choice in Shadow, but then it has this Sacrifice Heal as well. And people look at it and they're like, why is this a Link monster? And actually, if you look across it, well, in the middle here, we've also got another Shadow monster that has Sacrifice Heal, i.e. sacrificing stuff at the back of the team. And it seems to be a little bit of a theme in the element. If you look down in the bottom left, there's another monster, Skelevarthin, who's Shadow's massive protector, and that can sacrifice things at the back of the team to heal itself. So actually, Shadow has this slight theme of sacrificing stuff to heal monsters, and actually they can heal the protectors with it, or other stuff like that. And that's something which maybe if they look into a little bit more, if there's a bit more kind of making rocks and stuff at the back to sacrifice, a monster like Skelevarthin can actually work very nicely and fit with Link Shadow stuff very well, because, I mean, Skelevarthin also fits into the Death Sentence category because it has the Swift Twin Death Sentence. So there's definite stuff which can go on here. You can see on the right there's a few monsters with Cannibalize that can heal the team, and then we also got Bitter Beast that can both heal itself and Life Flip Friend. It's pretty cool what Shadow does in the terms of healing, and definitely something which I believe they will explore in the future, because you can see there's little bits coming over time trying to put something together. We now move to section 2 of this video, where we're going to go through all the new monsters that have been added. We're going to start with the super epics here, and I'm going to try and go a little pacey through some of these super epics because there's not a whole lot going on with them, a little bit less exciting than the Legendaries and Mythics. So this Abyss Soldier, if you've seen my other videos, you'll know how the Abyss Soldiers work. This one is a poison sweeper, and surprisingly it does actually work in with the other Abyss Soldiers. It doesn't need the extra damage because the double Poison Eater does enough damage if both targets are poisoned. Now, if you use it without other Abyss Soldiers, this becomes actually quite tanky because it's got the minimum defense, which means if it's with the other Abyss Soldiers, it's quite easy to kill, but by itself, it actually becomes, that defense becomes high enough that it tanks quite a lot of things. The sweeping is nice and fast, it's 130 seconds. It's also got the Bloodcrave move, which is not ideal on a super epic because it kills itself off quite quickly. It hasn't got a load of health, but definitely a pretty good sweeper here. A lot of people are including this in poison teams, and it's working nicely. The next monster to talk about is Demon Toad. This is pretty exciting. It is very much a Link monster, and it does it sets up some nice combos. This has High Speed and Enraged Teammate, which is pretty powerful. That Enraged Teammate buffs the attack stat of a monster by 50%. It sets their defense to 0, but it is very good for certain targets. We'll get to one of the targets later on, so I'm going to talk about it there a bit more. But basically this can set up some combos for dealing good damage, as well as it can shield itself and has the 250-second Mega Bomb. Now, if it gets killed, it's got Poison Revenge, which is very nice for setting up any poison monsters. So, if you're using Link Shadow, then you might be having a Link Shadow poison team, and this can set those up. You won't necessarily be having this killed early on. They may target your other things because it doesn't really have any damage potential. And in terms of support, all it has is Enraging Teammates, which you won't really want to target everything with Enraged Teammate. So this tends to sort of stay alive for a bit, and then people will kill it off if you were to use it in PvP. Otherwise, in PvE, you can use it for the combos, and then also the Mega Bomb in the long run. Its shielding itself is pretty good, and Gravity Field is always nice too, for helping whatever combo you want to pull off work a lot better. Next monster is Spectre Fox. I think that's how you say it. And this one is pretty cool too. So this fits with the sort of necromancy sub-theme, with the fact that when it dies, there's a 75% chance it gets revived, and also when it dies, it puts an enemy to sleep. That is an enormous revenge, and people really do not want to kill this, which means you want to get a kill with it first. And to get a kill, you've got Stealthbane. Now, Camouflage has become pretty popular recently in PvP, just in the last few months or so, and there's definitely quite a bit of it around. Stealthbane is a powerful move, so despite this not having high attack, it can kill things. This is a pretty cool sweeper which can do a lot of other stuff as it dies, and is generally a huge annoyance for the enemy team. It's pretty cool. The only issue is it's solo Bloodcrave, so it's not going in those Link teams, but it's pretty cool, and it's definitely seeing a lot of use for a lot of people. Thlug Bruno here, as I said with the other Thlugs, it really is part of the group. This one in particular is the Thlug Sweeper. So it doesn't really have any revenge when you kill it. It just gets revived next in line. Doesn't really matter that much. It's basically for resetting its health if it's done Bloodcrave too much. This one is faster than the other Thlugs, and you will feast with it to get the revenge you want, as well as charge the Bloodcrave, and then you can sweep piercing with Bloodcrave on whatever you want. It also has really interesting combo potential with the Send Back Unlimited. I've seen a couple of people use this with Shocking Entrance monsters. Near the end of the team, you can have the Shocking Entrance come in, then you send it back with this, and basically you loop some Shocking Entrance monsters, sending them all back, and you keep stunning the enemy team. It's a pretty cool idea. There's definitely going to be other combos that come up with that. So this has actual use outside of the Thlug combos, but in the Thlug combos, it's one of the key pieces for first starting it off and also being a sweeper. So a pretty cool monster, one of the stronger Thlugs, and definitely one of the more interesting ones. Now move to, I believe, our final Super Epic, and this is Twiggle, which is an exciting Super Epic version of a 1-star monster. So we can all get access to this. To evolve it, it takes, I believe, 5 Vora books, which is very difficult for newer players. But you can get this later on, and it's exceptionally powerful at killing protectors. So if there's no protector, then this doesn't really have any target. It can't do that much. It can do Demon's Glare, which kills a random monster on the field. Fits with the whole Shadow theme of like instant kill stuff. It doesn't matter about their stats, but it's a random monster on the field and it's 200 seconds, so that's not ideal at all. Basically, you need to meet protectors, and then you can instantly kill them and get a turn, and if they're multiple protectors, you can do that. If it gets 3 kills, then it can one-shot with its bloodshed. Basically, this is for certain PvP metas. You might want to bring this in. If there's loads of protectors about, this will just annihilate them. And otherwise, in some PvE battles, this is very good because that Guardian Execute instantly kills the things. It doesn't matter if they're buffed up massively, you can just take them out. So, for example, in Ultimate Challenge, a lot of people like to use Death Revenge teams, and 2 very common Death Revenge monsters are Neboronyx and Cosmodragon, which both have Protect. Now, there's also a couple of other ones like Horrorclaw or Tortogeist, which people like to use, and this can just instantly kill them. When it dies, you get a second copy of it as well. The Stunning Entrance, very nice for controlling the enemy team a bit on top of what it's doing. So this is very powerful for the certain battles where it's useful, and otherwise it's kind of not that great. It's a bit of a weird one, and I'm glad they added it to the game, but don't get too excited looking at the upside and thinking it's just going to work out every time, because it doesn't. We now move on to Legendaries, and this is the one Legendary that was added. We're going to go through 3 more after this, which were previous, before this, last year. But this was the one that was added. It's the Moth, and like all the other Moths, it has to go through the Pooper form, which is a very tanky, slow speed monster that comes with shield entrance, and then you have to pass 100 seconds, then you can turn it into this Moth. If it gets killed before it turns into this Moth, it turns into a 5-star version of the Moth, which is exactly the same but with 5-star stats, and doesn't have the passives or the secret skill. So this Moth, in the 5-star form, is not the most exciting. It's got Purify Mist at 130 seconds, which is great, and the high defense on it as well means it's going to be a good, reasonable support monster. But you've got to remember that compared to, say, a Super Epic which had Purify Mist at 130 seconds, that would be potted, preferably, and be faster. This is not going to come potted, so it's going to be literally 130 seconds. The give turn as well. 160 is a bit slow for doing that. The Cannibalize, it can kill itself. And that is the very useful thing about the 5-star form, is if you don't want it, you can cannibalize itself. But anyway, the main thing here is obviously the 6-star form, which you want to get. And here, it's incredibly tanky. It has a much less good entrance than many of the other Moths, just having shield entrance as opposed to something crazy which can just kill stuff, as lots of the other Moths, they can just kill 2 enemy monsters as soon as they get a turn. But this does get give turn, and the Purify Mist is pretty handy. I tried this out a little bit. It's fine, but it's definitely weaker than the other Moths, and it's held back by the Pooper. So unfortunately, it's okay, and it can come up as a useful support monster for newer players, but it's nothing too exciting. Now we go to Magatsuo. This was a Halloween Legendary from 2018, so technically didn't come into this, but I've mentioned already. This is an incredibly powerful poison monster. It does have solo Blood Crave, but it doesn't really matter too much because you can keep using that double poison chomp as the killing move, and then there are loads of targets for Venom Chrono Killer. Venom Chrono Killer is an exceptionally powerful move because a lot of these Chrono monsters, if they're Overwatch or whatever, then poisoning them disables the Overwatch, and there's just, there's so many things for it. Plus also Venom Chrono Killer is more powerful than normal Chrono Killer in terms of damage wise, so this kills a lot of things very easily. The Venom Chrono Killer is also a 70-second way to charge the double poison chomp, so it can itself charge its sweeping moves to kill things that are, kill anything. It doesn't have to hit a Chrono monster with that Venom Chrono Killer, just hit something, and then the next turn you can do double poison chomp. But that's not where things stop. This is poison immune, stun immune, so it's very hard to deal with, and it can basically backstab a teammate, turning it into a Magatoid, which can then blow up every poison monster on the field. And the Magatoid gets a turn surprisingly quickly. So yeah, this has combo potential, it has sweeping potential, it's a really good all-round monster. The only thing which keeps it in check is its low speed. It's slow to get its first turn, and it hasn't got the most amazing defense. So it can be dealt with reasonably easily, but it can do a whole lot of stuff when it gets turns. The Absorb Poison is very useful too. Combos really nicely with the Magatoid. If you want to have the field poison, but you only want it to be enemies, you can line up the Absorb Poison, and you can just remove the poison from your allies. It also, you take the recoil from double poison chomp, so being able to heal yourself up is very useful. It's an excellent sweeper, excellent new poison addition, and really making poison strong on Shadow. Next monster is Nova Drake. This was the anniversary from, I believe, the 3rd anniversary of the game. I'm pretty sure it's the 3rd. It's been too many years now. So Nova Drake is exceptionally powerful. Now, we talked earlier on about Enraged Teammate having a particular target. Enraged Teammate from Demon Toad, that is. This is the particular target, and the reason being is as this monster does attacks, it hurts itself, so it's going to get onto low health anyway, so the fact that it has minimum defense doesn't matter too much because there's not a whole lot of difference when you've got only a small amount of health. It also has hold ground and a way to instantly heal itself, so again, it doesn't matter too much if it gets hit to hold ground quickly because it can still heal itself up and continue going. The moves on this are exceptionally fast, and Assisted Dusk, when you have this 50-second move that, if you've enraged teammate as well, does brilliant damage. If you watch my video quite recently, I think it was Time Attack, where I showed using Nova Drake with the enraged combo and how you can just obliterate through enemy teams. It doesn't work necessarily in PvP because they have stuff to kind of slow you down with what you can't just sweep through a team that easily. But there's certain places where you can use Nova Drake with enraged teammate. Anyway, it doesn't just need enraged teammate. This monster is crazily good at any point in any team because it's got high speed, hold ground, and it can heal itself up as soon as it gets a turn. It's very hard to stop from doing its thing, and its thing is Stun Wave. So when it gets a turn, if the enemy team is open to stun at all, then it's a good idea to use Stun Wave and stun them by 150 seconds. Because the move's only 50 seconds long, it sets up Time Strike almost all the time. If you got this potted at all, say that's 45 seconds Stun Wave, you get a turn. They've been stunned for 105 seconds. If anything was on, say, 50 seconds before it's their turn, they're now on 155 and Time Strike's going to kill it. So Stun Wave sets up Time Strike very nicely. Raw Bloodthirst is an insane sweeping move, and even though this looks like a Linked Shadow monster with the Assisted Duskull, you don't really need that Assisted Duskull, but it's also another thing you can build around, and if you're in a Shadow team or you have any Shadow teammates, suddenly this can just hit the enemy team for good damage, and I tend to just use it for removing like shields and stealth and that kind of stuff, but there's a lot going for this monster. It's worth noting, I will just say, Assisted Duskull on this monster, it does 10% less damage than on other monsters. I think that's just to keep it slightly more balanced, but it's still very good. The next and last legendary to talk about is Pumpkin. So this was another Halloween monster from 2018. Came with Magatsuo, and that festival, it turns out, was really, really good. It had 2 exceptionally powerful Shadow Poison monsters. This is a brilliant sweeper, absolutely brilliant. The speed on it is surprisingly high for a poison monster, and I think that's because it needs to poison monsters with its poison gas. That's the only way it can poison stuff. However, of course, if you use this in a poison team, you've poisoned from other things or whatever, this can be set up for the first turn. And if it's poisoned, its poison massacre on the enemies will do about 6,000 damage, which pierces. I mean, the piercing doesn't matter so much if they're poisoned already, but basically this will annihilate anything that isn't buffed. And the poison massacre is 200 seconds, but you can give turn to it and keep sweeping through. So this is a poison PvE sweeper. As long as the enemies aren't sort of buffed too much, you can sweep through a lot of things with it. It needs support from other poison monsters to really get the enemies poisoned. It has got the secret skill, but that's after time's passed. So yes, you can use that later on if things have fallen apart a bit. If you haven't got the poison support anymore, then it can poison the whole enemy team itself. But yeah, you really need it poisoned and the enemies poisoned, and then it can just go crazy with its sweeping. It's also got a 100-second poison eater, so if you can't poison all the enemies, or they've got some camouflage or that kind of thing, it can still sweep too. And then if you're outside of Shadow, it's got the solo Bloodcrave. I don't know, when they made Pumpkin and Magazio, they were kind of introducing solo, so they made them both solo monsters. It's weird because, to be honest, they're solo monsters, but you don't use the Bloodcrave move. So anyway, that's just how it is. It's got the solo Bloodcrave there. The main thing is all the poison stuff going on, and the sleep immunity is just kind of the nail in the coffin that makes this not just do all its stuff, but it also counters sleep and one-on-one. Finally, we have the Mythics to go through. There are 5 of them here. This is the first one. This one is very on theme with Shadow Monsters. It has the death sentence on all the enemies when it enters with that death comes. That is very combo happy. So you can combine this with, say, one-on-one, where you use some entrance control to make this enter before you use one-on-one, and then the one-on-one passes the time, 320 seconds, so they all die before they wake up. There's various other combos you can do with it too, and that makes it incredibly powerful for PvE. You can see the difference here between my PvP rating and my PvE. S for general, 1 away from the top. C+ is a couple away from the bottom. It doesn't work so well in PvP because it's a little bit slow trying to rely on that death comes. It's not really going to happen. However, it has got a couple of other things about it. So the double light bane means any holy monsters are there, it can just sweep happily, kill anything because it's so powerful. And otherwise, the secret skill, it has since been reduced from 120 seconds to 70 seconds. So it can quite quickly set itself up, give itself a kill, or a teammate. That can be useful for some combos. And then it can start sweeping with the blood bite, and that heals itself while killing things. It's very strong. When the enemy team doesn't handle Devilidus properly, Devilidus can do a lot of work. The next monster to talk about is Focal Force. This has a different secret skill to what it's showing here. Again, it's an older screenshot. It's been changed to Raw Taunt, I believe. Is it Raw Taunt or just Taunt? I can't remember. Anyway, either way, it can taunt itself, and it has auto overwatch. So enemies will be forced to hit it, and then it gets turns when it gets hit. It is incredibly tanky. With that very low speed, it's got massive health. It's also got high defense. So it's very, very hard to kill. It's weak to Chrono Killer, but nothing else. And when it gets turns, it can either kill something with Raw Fast Strike, and that can bypass protectors, so that's a very good sweeper move, or it can kill something with Piercing with a Catapult. The triple entrance means you've got 3 ways to do that, 3 charges for it, and fitting with the sub-theme I said earlier on in this video about the Cannibalize and blah blah blah, there was sacrificing stuff at the back of your team, so this helps with that, which I like a lot. And then otherwise, if it can't kill anything, or it'd be better to actually just give turn to a teammate, it's got give turn. So exceptionally good, just in theory. And design-wise, one of my favourite monsters. Art-wise, probably my favourite monster. I'm a big fan for this monster. You can see my tier ratings here. They're actually older, they're low because this was before the change to Taunt. They've changed since Taunt got added. It's now a lot better than it was. Unfortunately, before it was kind of like, it's great in theory, but nobody actually attacks it. But anyway, can do really cool stuff. The high seconds moves keeps it in balance, so it's not overpowered, but very strong monster, and very cool to play with. The next monster is Harlequin. This is exceptionally good, and it's mainly for the reason that it has tanky stats, pretty good defense, and hold ground, and then it can dual Slayer Bane. Dual Slayer Bane is very good when you can when the monster itself is hard to kill, because when the monster enters, chances are there's a target for dual Slayerbane, and if there isn't a target, well, they're probably going to kill something of yours, before your next turn, and then there is a target for dual Slayerbane. And when dual Slayerbane can kill 2 things, that's very powerful. And this monster is tank itself, like I said. It's got pretty good speed. It can also heal itself. And the crazy thing about it is if you have a bronze shell on the team, then it gets focus, it gets stun immunity, and its stats get multiplied by 5, which makes it insanely hard to kill. So there's various stuff you can do with this. It's generally used better at the back of a team, where you can make those bronze shells and they, might just... Sorry, not bronze shells. Bronze shells, sorry, I thought I was saying Rockoid. And they might just come straight into the field because you've got no other teammates or whatever, because it's near the back, or it's at the back. And that heal is very strong. It's a full heal if you've got a bronze shell on the team. And it says that you can't use it if there's a friendly bronze shell. That's a kind of a false statement. You can use it if there's a bronze shell in the team. It's limited to 5 uses because it was actually deemed a bit too overpowered. You could just spam it like crazy and make this so hard to kill when there's just unlimited bronze shells in there. And another very strong thing about it is it's got this pullback. So normally the way you want to use this is the first turn it gets, you do the bronze shells substitute. A pullback effect is very strong because there are powerful entrance effects around the place, and so you just need to put this with something that's good to pull back. Then you put it back and you get the bronze shell you need. It's set up pretty nicely. That's a 59-second move when you have this awoken, and then from there you can just kill things with double reckless attack or dual Slayerbane. The Bloodthirst does incredible damage if you've got a bronze shell on the team, but once you've got this set up, you don't even need a bronze shell on the team. And like I said, dual Slayerbane's actually kind of powerful enough to kill a lot of things even without the buff. So this monster all round very good, solid monster with great sweeping potential and a little bit of kind of combo and helpful support stuff there with the pullback. Lastly we have, second to last, we've got Onyxia. Now this is something that really supports Shadow very well. I've said before about how Shadow doesn't have that much stun protection. This is a Shadow monster with stun counter. Now, it used to have Assisted Dusk All, which was very, very strong, and it fitted with the whole Shadow theme of having 67% speed with reasonable, good attack and Assisted Hit All. But they removed that, they changed it to Dreaded Wave, which initially we were all upset about, but Dreaded Wave has since been buffed, and it's a good move. This isn't so much a linked Shadow monster anymore. It's got the element healing, but you don't really use that move too much. This is basically a stun counter sweeper. And what makes it really special is the secret skill, I believe, is just super, super powerful. Having that instant knockback random means you can deal with a problem and it puts your team at no disadvantage. Normally knocking something back takes 160 seconds or more. An actual knockback attack is 250 seconds, and this is just 1 second, and there's no restriction. You can use this on your first turn. So this supports whatever team it's in very nicely. It can be used with protectors, it can be used with one-on-one as a combo thing to then maybe use the Dreaded Wave to just take out the enemy team while they're asleep. And then you've got the Blood Fury. As soon as you've got a kill, stun counter Blood Fury is just insane. So this monster has a lot going for it. It's very strong. I know I've said that about a lot of the Mythics and a lot of the monsters today, but this in particular is one of the most exceptionally powerful monsters to enter the game, I believe. Some other people are down on it. The second form is really bad, and that's what gets a lot of people not liking it. Also, people focus on the Fatal Sting, which is not the most exceptional thing. It fits with the Shadow theme of, the death sentence type stuff, but it's not the strongest move. What you're looking at here is trying to get a kill, having that instant knockback random, and then you've got the Blood Fury stun counter. Fatal Sting, I said it's not the strongest. It actually does quite a bit of damage when it hits something, so that is your way to kind of kill something. Dreaded Wave also is very good for getting kills. If anything's on low health, then you can take it out. And 160 seconds isn't the worst way to charge Blood Fury. Lastly, we have Cyberith. Now, this monster is due for a buff. I can say this because it hasn't happened yet, but I know it's happening in the next update. And I unfortunately kind of am responsible for getting this nerfed before it was released. I freaked out, as a lot of people did, that it was too powerful. And so what I'm going to say it is well, it's a little hard to judge it because I don't know what buff exactly they're going to do to it. But basically this monster is like a 1-on-1 mythic, except instead of 1-on-1 it has duel, which the main way that works differently is 1-on-1 will get countered by things like stealth and that kind of stuff. It relies on being able to sleep the enemy team. However, duel cannot be countered. It goes past camouflage and everything, and it just pushes everything back and grants them more Overwatch. The Overwatch means this is weak to Chrono Killer, which is a slight problem. There's also various counters to duel, so the thing that gets that isn't duel, or that I guess is dueled, the thing that doesn't get pushed back, one random enemy, if that enemy has piercing or they have any kind of knockback or repulse and stuff, they can effectively counter what you did by putting Overwatch on your teammates. The Overwatch aspect, from my experience, is the biggest bit of it. If you can put this with monsters that have hold ground or shielding and that kind of stuff, then it works very nicely with them having Overwatch put on them. And if you have any way to, say, repulse the enemies or that kind of thing, that's a good way to deal with the fact that you Overwatch the enemy team. So this is a very good monster for setting up a certain condition which you can build your team around and the enemy team will not be built around. It itself can kill enemies, as you can see, it just basically, it kills some enemies, it's got very high attack to help it kill those enemies, and then it becomes a stun immune bloodthirst thing, which also has the immunity to sleep effects, the insomnia there. So it can be a nice sweeper if you can get things going. Otherwise it can set up various combos and that kind of stuff. We now move to section 3 of this video, which is having a roundup of all the monsters that were added and where Shadow stands now. So looking at the screen here, this is the different themes which those new monsters have come into. Now, there weren't that many new monsters. I did include the 3 extra legendaries from before, but you can see they've really fitted into some of the themes here. So looking at the poison theme has got 5 new monsters. That is enormous. And it's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about the poison theme first and then not include Magatsuo and Pumpkin, because those are some big poison additions that really made Poison in Shadow very strong. It got another Poison Revenge. It got the monster that's not entirely poison with Onyxia. But anyway, some poison stuff there, quite a lot of it. Death Sentence, we always get more of this in Shadow. Stuff which is just going to kill the enemies no matter what they are. And the stuff which Shadow got in this regard is very strong in the last year. Devilidus, we talked about that just now. Onyxia, the Fatal Sting, that can take out, I believe, mega bosses, or maybe that's been patched, so it can't take down super bosses, whatever you want to call them. Magatsuo, it has it with the Magatoid that it creates, can kill all poison monsters. I'm going to be releasing a video quite soon, which is me showing me having to use Magatsuo to take down the Ultimate Challenge Gatekeeper at level 2000, and they're ridiculously buffed monsters. It's a poison team that just cannot be beaten by a normal team. However, using Magatsuo, those Magatoids can wipe out the enemies when they're poisoned, and I just needed to keep my team from being poisoned. So yeah, really cool stuff there, and yeah, that's it. So looking at the healing and cannibalize, you've got some more stuff here. Focal Force really fits into this very nicely as a target for healing, because it's so tanky and every time it gets hit it gets a turn. It's obviously its health is going to drop down slowly, but if you can heal it up, well, it's going to be a nightmare to deal with. And now that it's got Taunt as well, it's going to draw in the attacks. So if they can't kill it in one go, in one hit, it's going to be a real problem with that healing. Then we got slightly more stealth there with the Moth. It's got the Purify Mist. Not actually a sneak attack monster though, because Holy got that one. But anyway, a little bit more stealth support there. And we've also got a new theme, which is AoE spam. I've kind of talked about this previously, and I talked about it when talking about Nova Drake, but it's very noticeable what Shadow has for AoE spam. So we've got Onyxia, well, the monsters on the right here are the new ones, and what have really made it happen. So, like I said, it's Demon Toad and Nova Drake, with the Enraged Teammate and Assisted Duskull, but otherwise just 50-second Assisted Duskull or Nova Drake by itself. It's very good for this. And then Onyxia has the Dreaded Wave, hitting 30% off enemy monsters, very useful, and really fits with it. And then on the left, we've got all the older monsters that fit with this. So The most noticeable one is Nox Dragon having the assisted Duskull, and it's got instant Overwatch, so if it gets hit it can get a turn and then it can hit them all again. If you've got shadow monsters, that can do a lot of damage with that. And then the other ones, I won't go through each one of them, but basically they all have good attack and hit all, either assisted hit all, piercing hit all, or instant Overwatch, and this just works really nicely for making this an actual theme. Most of these monsters are like within this 60 to 70% speed category. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, this is kind of what Shadow can do as a theme. It really fits with it, that they're all in this kind of speed category, and then just hit all the enemies with assisted hits to take them out. So where does Shadow stand now with these new monsters that have been added? Like I said, Poison has got really, really good. Shadow now has, I would say, the best Poison setup in the game of all the elements. It's better than Fire for Poison. It's better than Water for Poison, I think, most likely. Shadow has really got Poison now in its grasp, and I probably will see more Poison in Fire coming in that pushes that ahead again, because Fire is meant to be, it's kind of been known as the best Poison element. But anyway, Shadow's got great stuff now. We've got a few more stun immune options, Onyxia being the main one. That stun counter in Shadow is just excellent. It's not so much a linked Shadow monster anymore, but it's definitely great for the Shadow element. I mentioned it a couple of times, how Shadow is by far the best in PvE. It's got everything you want in terms of blood moves for doing high damage, the death sentence stuff for getting around buffed enemies. Stealth is just generally really good in PvE because the AI cannot deal with it properly. It's got revival stuff and death revenge. It's got mirror revenge. It's got all the different bits that really work well against PvE. And against PvE, you don't need enormous stun protection. You need some, but you don't need enormous stun protection. So that sort of like little gap in Shadow doesn't matter that much, and you don't need the enormous control that you maybe need in PvP. So in PvP, where it struggles is it kind of just does its own thing. It doesn't really counter other things, and you need that kind of the power to counter other stuff in order to really be successful in PvP, as well as not having loads of high-speed monsters. High-speed monsters obviously make a much bigger impact in PvP if they can come in and do something quickly, and Shadow doesn't really have that quite so much. So Shadow is also all around attacking, and there's some strong protectors or a few other things that it does, but mostly it's about damage dealing and killing things, and not having that variety holds it back for a few aspects of the game, mainly PvP, like I said. So what I would do with Shadow is I really want more stealth stuff. I'm not biased just because I've got Zulong and I've got a stealth team, but it hasn't really had any support for 2 years now. So it would be really nice that the Shadow element, which is meant to be the stealth element, gets a bit more stealth support, just a bit more sneak attack stuff, and stuff being done there. I'm sure they'll do stuff in the future. It doesn't really need mentioning, but it's worth noting that nothing more's been added for 2 years. I'd like to see some really cool stuff to do with, you can see my example here of using rocks to add kills to allies, because I think it's pretty cool what it does with the sacrificing rocks at the back of the team, and there's a few monsters which do that. There's also the Devilborg, the Link monster, that does that, and I think it would be really cool to kind of go down that route where they don't just use the rocks to sort of throw at enemies, they don't use the rocks for some of the things which the other elements do. I think it'd be cool if they fit with the kind of Bloodgrave theme, and use them to add kills to allies, or something along that line. Yeah, and like I said, Focal Force benefits from being healed. There could be other monsters that maybe benefit from healing, so that then it puts a bit more focus on those monsters which can heal your allies. I don't know what happened to my voice there. And then, another thing is for payoffs for blood moves. I came up with random idea here, but basically, the payoff for a blood move is you can kill enemy monsters, and that's great. But it would be cool if in Shadow particularly, because there's so much in the way of blood moves, if they could actually use those blood moves for other things, I think that'd be really cool. That's probably a route to go down in the long run. Just something interesting to think about. So yeah, that basically rounds off my ideas for Shadow. Shadow, like I said, it's probably the best element for PvE, so it's definitely not doing badly. It's probably my maybe joint favorite element. I mean, Holy is my favorite element, and Shadow is very similar to Holy in many ways, either doing like something very similar or the opposite of what Holy does. It does a different kind of spin on the same ideas. So I naturally do like Shadow a lot. I think a lot of people use a lot of Shadow even if they don't realise it, just because it's got a lot of good PvE monsters. And yeah, it's a great element. I just like to see it a little bit more viability in PvP, maybe with a few of my ideas, or just general things being developed a little bit more and coming together. So thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed this video. I've got still to go Storm and then Water. Those videos will be coming out soon, so check them out when they come, and I'll see you soon.